I'm going to ask you one of those questions that I know most people hate to ask, and I apologize in advance. Uh, it's a prediction. If you had to predict where this conflict, Ukraine-Russia conflict, is going to be, say, in a year from now, how do you see this thing settling?
Well, I would say, Mike, and I don't mind you asking that because it is important for all of us. But the outcome depends really on the United States. I mean, if the United States says it is in our interest that Ukraine defeats Russia, because it's important for our economy, for our prosperity, for the security of our allies, and because of it deters China from making a terrible miscalculation. If we recognize that and act on that, then this thing will be over. It should have ended last year, actually. Russia, remember, this war started 10 and a half years ago when Russia invaded Ukraine in 2014. Russia had every advantage. And yet, after 10 and a half years, Ukraine still controls more than 80% of its country. The great Russian Black Sea Fleet, which has a really cool name, is a terrible navy. Most of it's underwater or has had to retreat to the east. The Russian Air Force has failed its two most important tasks, which are air superiority and interdiction of Ukrainian lines of communication. They haven't destroyed a single train or convoy bringing equipment or ammunition from Poland into Ukraine. And so I think that the Ukrainians have done a remarkable job without the full commitment of the West to help them win. So I think in the coming year, if we recognize it's in our interest that they actually win, that's what will happen. And Putin will realize there's no way he's going to win. If we fail, then it will be a disaster for Europe, and it will have a significant impact on us. And I think the Chinese will be emboldened.
Now, uh, Ukrainian President Zelensky and obviously the Ukrainian military, they've been pushing for some time now for approval from the U.S. administration, from the White House, to use U.S. munitions to strike military targets inside Russia. And there's been a lot of pushback against that. How logical is that position to say, okay, we're providing you with a variety of munitions, you just can't use them to target military facilities inside Russia that are targeting Ukrainian infrastructure?
So I believe in the metaphor of killing the archer is better than trying to intercept all the arrows. So, in other words, hitting the airfields from which Russian aircraft are deploying and dropping these glide bombs against Ukrainian apartment buildings and hospitals and schools, it's much better to hit the airfield rather than try and knock down the bombs and the drones and the missiles as they're coming in. So, of course, we should be allowing Ukraine to use whatever means they have, to include whether it's the 300-kilometer range ATACMS that we provide, or the British Storm Shadow, or whatever other long range system there is. This is about protecting civilian life. And I think that this is a policy decision of the administration with which I disagree. Despite all the good things the administration has done to keep 50 nations moving forward to support Ukraine, we have stopped short of the critical goal of declaring that we want Ukraine to win, and therefore we're going to give them everything that they need so that they can actually win. So yes, to the point of your question, of course they should be able to use whatever we give them. But the problem is that there are too many people that have an excessive fear that Russia might actually use a nuclear weapon, and I think that Russia's not going to use a nuclear weapon.
If how would you answer this question? If because it comes up a lot, right? And I hear it from a lot of people, which in general terms is why should we care? Why are we sending money, resources over for this fight? Why is it important to us? Why aren't we focused on what's happening in the U.S.? Uh, how would you answer that?
No, it's a great question. I get asked that question as well, and in my mind, it's actually quite simple. Number one, Europe is America's top economic trading partner. So it's in our interest that Europe is stable and secure so that it can be prosperous. And Russia's invasion of Ukraine has put millions of refugees on the road into Europe, putting enormous burdens on their economic and social networks and systems that affects our prosperity. Russia's invasion of Ukraine has disrupted grain supplies, which is needed not only for millions of people in Africa and Asia and the Middle East, but also it affects food prices for the United States. And of course, Russia's disruption of energy flows from the region shows up at the gas tank, at the gas pump in the United States. So it's in our interest economically that Ukraine is able to defeat Russia. That's the first reason. The second reason, of course, is if it looks like we are going to fail, or that Ukraine fails because we allow them to, I think the Chinese, which everybody points to as the main long-term threat, and I don't disagree with that, that if we allow that to happen, then I think China will take the lesson that the West does not have the will or the industrial capacity to actually defend what we say is so important: sovereignty, respect for freedom of navigation, respect for international law. So the chance of a problem with China goes up if we don't help Ukraine succeed. And then finally, of course, the Middle East that we've already talked about. Russia supports Iran. Iran supports Hezbollah, Hamas, and Houthis, and they attack our ally, Israel. So part of helping Israel includes not just giving them ammunition, but also isolating their principal adversary, Iran.
Okay, that's a very solid answer. And to be honest with you, next time I get asked that same question, I'm going to use that answer verbatim. But I will give you credit for it. Hey, thanks for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to hit that like button and leave a comment, a really positive, nice, and kind comment. That would be appreciated. And if you're not already subscribed to our channel, make sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss any of our daily updates.